Hi, and welcome to The Right Hook. I'm Susan T., and together we'll be exploring tips, tricks, and tools you can start using right away to make your writing stand out. And at the end of each video, you'll have the chance to practice what we went over. So let's get started. If you're watching this video, you're probably job hunting or you're about to start. These 4 tips can give you a leg up in an interview. But before we dive in, let's revisit a principle you probably already know, but one that's powerful enough to repeat. Do your homework on the employer. A standout interview starts long before you walk into the room. Explore the company's website, read the social media posts, and run a browser search to see the latest news and updates. Then, when you're in the interview, be sure to weave in something specific and positive that you discovered in your research. It shows curiosity. It demonstrates that you prepared for the interview, and it expresses genuine interest. Those are 3 qualities every hiring manager notices. Imagine you're interviewing for a job at a school and discover that many of its students come from immigrant families. That's an opportunity to make a meaningful connection. Maybe you or your parents came from another country. Let the interviewer know that you found out that the school has students of many nationalities and that you understand the immigrant experience. Explain how that makes you more sympathetic to the challenges that newcomers face in a new school and how that makes you better equipped to support them. Now let's dive into the 4 secrets. I can't emphasize number 1 enough. When an interviewer asks you a question, give a clear, concise answer, and then stop talking. Nothing derails an interview faster than a candidate who doesn't know how to bring an answer to a close. It happens most often when they're caught off guard by a question they didn't prepare for. Instead of pausing and regrouping, they go around in circles and they get stuck in the mud. But it can also happen when you're explaining something you know a lot about. You may want to impress your interviewer by giving a fire hose of information. But the result is that precious interview time gets swallowed up, and the hiring manager loses the chance to ask more meaningful questions that could have showcased your strengths. So how can you make yourself stop talking? That brings us to secret 2. Master the art of the crisp answer. When you're asked a question, resist the urge to jump in immediately. A brief pause is absolutely acceptable during an interview. Use the moment to map out 3 key points you want to cover. Then line them up in your mind and make sure each one of them speaks directly to the question. Touch on each point concisely and try to bring in a quick example that brings your points to life. By taking a beat to organize your thoughts before you speak, you project confidence and clarity. Let's continue with the school job example. Suppose you're asked how you would handle a challenging student. Focus on the top 3 things that you might do. First, talk briefly about making your own diagnosis of what the child needs. Second, mention special games you would play with the student to help them manage their challenges. And third, add how you would make the child feel safe so that they would trust you. Sure, you could go on talking because you know a lot, but notice that you've already answered the question, so stop talking. Let your response settle and leave room for your interviewer to find out more about you by asking another question. I call secret number 3 the high-low-high technique because that's how I think of it in my mind when I'm navigating a tough interview question. So here's how it works. When you're hit with a challenging question that could cast you in a less than flattering light, start with a positive. Shift into the negative or challenge, and then finish strong with another positive. This approach keeps you honest without letting the low point define you. Imagine you're asked to describe a time at work when you were put in an uncomfortable position. Here's how the high-low-high structure can turn a tricky question into a winning answer. Start with the high. You might say that you've always gotten along with your colleagues. Then move into the low. In your first job, some coworkers spent too much time joking around instead of helping store customers. You wanted to fit in, so you went along with it, even though you could see the manager wasn't thrilled. Now bring it back up to the high. You eventually shifted your attitude. You began saying things to your coworkers like, let's catch up after I finish helping this customer. Or, I've got a story about that. I'll tell it to you later. Your focus on customers paid off. You were promoted to assistant manager, and those same coworkers started looking up to you for your work ethic. You ended your answer to the question on a high note. Secret number 4. Never stop selling yourself for the role, including when you're asked an open-ended question. Always shape your answer around the job you want, and remember to keep your response crisp by focusing on 3 key points. Let's return to the example of interviewing at a school. The interviewer may say, tell me something about yourself. Instead of drifting into nostalgia about your red tricycle, anchor your answer in the role. You may start by saying you grew up in a loving family, and even as a kid you were drawn to working with children. Then build on that by mentioning that you studied psychology to better understand how to support young people. Finally, connect the dots. Point out how your personal understanding of how a stable family environment helps children feel secure, along with your training, has enabled you to build trust with students. So let's review what we covered in this episode. First, stop talking. When you've delivered your answer, bring it to a close and sit comfortably in the silence while you wait for the next question. That pause shows control, not uncertainty. Next, before you speak, take a moment to map out 3 sharp points so that you land your answer with clarity and purpose. Third, use the high-low-high technique to handle tough questions. Acknowledge the challenge, but always steer the story back to your strengths. And finally, when you're asked open-ended questions, shape every part of your response around the job you want. Keep selling yourself as the strongest and most suitable candidate for the role. Give it a try. Imagine an interviewer has asked you this question. How could you answer it using some of the secrets we uncovered in this session? Pause the video and think about it. You might answer something like this. Your answer crisply outlines 3 key points. You used the high-low-high principle to make sure you ended up in a favorable light. And then once you were done answering, you stopped talking and you let your response soak. Remember to close the loop after an interview by sending thank you emails to everyone you spoke with, even if you know you're no longer interested in the job. View my episode called Land a Punch in your post-interview email. It walks you through how to compose a message that stands out. And good luck on your job hunting. Thanks for watching this episode. And if you have any questions or want to send me a writing sample, you can reach me at therighthook123@gmail.com. I look forward to seeing you at my next video.